Go ahead, Afri.
Yes, Afrin, you have the right.
Thank you so much. All right. So let's start with how to prepare case files, because I think we have already dealt with what the format is, how to make your speeches, what is the basic requirement of a particular speech. So now you need to know how you're supposed to make that document, which is supposed to help you throughout till the finals, because the motion remains the same. Now, how you have to start with preparing a case file is, firstly, you have to research on the resolution. And I've already told you that researching basically means that you're supposed to have the basic working knowledge of the motion first. So even if it does not support or oppose a particular argument, and you don't understand how to make arguments by the research that you're doing, it's still okay, and it's still to start with that, because you would at least gain that basic amount of working knowledge on how the topic actually works, so that during the crossfires, when you absolutely have no idea as to what question can be posed on you, you at least have the basic knowledge to answer those questions. So just try to have the basic working knowledge of the topic. Secondly, try to have form a potential number of arguments. Now, why that is important is basically, let's say during your speech you would probably be using 2 to 3 arguments, or let's not just take how many arguments you're supposed to use, because you're supposed to have qualitatively better arguments rather than quantity of arguments. However, you're supposed to at least have potential arguments in your sheet, so that you understand that, okay, if my proposition or the pro is going to run a couple of cases, I can at least run the exact opposite thing to them, so that our cases like completely clashing to each other, and therefore we would be able to convince the judge as to why we win the debate, as opposed to you running a parallel case which is not going to give you any value until you compare why your case it should matter the most. All right, so form a number of potential arguments as to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then start your research based on that. Okay, so prepare a set of 2 case files, on one on the pro and one on the con. How many of y'all have started preparing case files, or have started trying to find out how or what are the arguments that can be done? That's really nice. It's only 2. Amazing. Yes, I think by now it's like really high time that you start preparing, because it's going to take you extensive research to make those case files. All right, so do you guys have any questions on how to prepare case files? It's just an introduction. I'm going to tell you how to prepare case files later, like in the next few slides. So this is very basic. I don't think there should be any question on this. So Manas and Apurva, do you have any question based on this slide?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
All right, cool. So let's move to the next slide. Now, what is art of argumentation? Now, how do you prepare arguments? And I think I've dealt with this slide yesterday as well. But just know that quantity of argument is less important than quality of argument. What that basically means that in case if pro runs like 5 arguments and opposition or con runs 2 arguments, that doesn't mean that pro has an automatic win. The way how wins are decided is who has better arguments, or who has the ability to prove the claim, but also show the research as to why that claim is actually true. So for you to tell that, listen, in terms of the oppression that females go through in a feminist debate, that, oh, females are going through oppression, that's not enough for you to just like state that. You have to prove that argument by giving reasonings as to why you say what you say. So why females are going through that oppression? Is it because of patriarchy? Is it because of systematic oppression? All of that you're supposed to use as warrant. So warrant is the reasoning. Now, third thing is evidence. Now, how would you show that there is oppression to females in a feminist debate? So what could be the evidence? I think the way how evidence would work in specifically to this topic would look like you going ahead and trying to research on, or like trying to find statistical data as to how many crimes against females or crimes against gender-based crimes actually used to happen before, as opposed to now. So you can show that statistic data, and then show that we found out in a particular website that this is how females were oppressed in or probably like saying that 70% of females were not allowed to, let's say, work outside and all of that. So this is the statistical data which we want, or data in general which supports the same claim. So it can also be a philosophical article that you can quote and say that females have been oppressed since a very long time, and these are the reasons why that happened. All right, so this is how claim, evidence, and warrant actually works. Now, any questions on claim, evidence, and warrant, since I've already dealt with that yesterday with a lot of amount of examples. We would move next then So this is where the new PPT comes into picture, and this is the new thing that you're going to gain from today. So forming arguments and terminology. So some of the terms you would probably not know because of the technicality or the jargon that it is. All right. Standard is one of the terms that is being used in public forum. So this means value criteria. So what value criteria is simply the reason as to why you have to convince the judge that we win the debate. Now there's a broad idea of reasoning or the umbrella term for why you should win the debate, and there are different reasoning as to why you win the debate. Now you have to term all those 1 2 3 4 5 reasoning under one umbrella term. Now what could be that term we would understand now. For example, the motion says in matters of US immigration policy, restriction on the rights of non-citizens are consistent with democratic ideals. Now, you're basically that this motion says that we should restrict the rights of non-citizens, let's say immigrants or anything like foreigners and all of that in your nation. And this is basically in line with the democratic ideals. Now, the basic person or the basic perception of this debate could be like, because democratic ideals is what the entire motion is trying to achieve, the value criteria should be democratic ideals. Now, how you would basically say is that this is our value in this debate, and value has to come from first speech, which means that you have to tell that this is our value, and we would prove to you as to like why we are going to have propagate that value throughout our speeches. So democratic ideals is basically the value that you could use in this motion. All right. The second example is the appropriation of outer space by private entities is unjust. Appropriation is basically like you sending satellites and so on and so forth in the outer space, so that there is so that on research purposes, on its extraction purposes, it can be for anything. All right. So appropriation of outer space by private entity is unjust. Now, the person who is like the team who is supporting the motion can say that we are going to use the value criterion as environmentalism. That basically means that we are going to prove to you as to why we win the debate based on the principle or the value that we are going to have protection of environment in outside the house. And through the reasoning that we are going to give you, we are going to prove all of that in the umbrella term of environmentalism. All right. So this can be the reasoning or the value criteria that can be used from side. Pro. On con, you can see that we use the value criterion of utilitarianism. Now, does anyone know what utilitarianism actually is? What is utilitarianism? Who would tell me? Okay, Avni Chada, go ahead.
Maximizing utility for the maximum number of people.
Yes, so it says that the maximum happiness of the maximum number of people. All right. So you have to say that. But then how do you prove that utilitarianism is going to be there in your city house? So on con, you can prove that even if there is some amount of a problem or harms that are being done to the environment, where at the end of the day, we're going to have extraction of resources. We would have extraction of some amount of like research in terms of like what's happening in Mars or what's happening in different planets in the solar system. And therefore, this maximum amount of utility that we're gaining with respect to the appropriation that is happening in the outer space. And therefore, con can use the basic idea or the umbrella term for utilitarianism, and therefore this can be the value criterion of the debate. Now we can have a couple of examples, and you have to tell me what can be the value criterion in that particular debate. All right. So let's say the motion talks about that education can be free for everyone in nation. So it can be resolved. India should make education free for everyone. Now think and tell me what could be the value criterion from side proposition or side pro. And just raise your hand and I'll pick and choose who can speak. And that's how I would understand you are understanding value criteria. What is value criteria? There are a few responses. Okay, Arhan says accessibility, and that's a very good thing. Yes, accessibility can be the value criteria in your Shraddha. Yes. Anything else?
नहीं, बहुत घटिया ऑमलेट बनाया था आपने. चीज सैंडविच दे दो.
Sajjot, please mute yourself. Okay, Ria, go ahead.
What about equality?
Yes, equality. So it can either be equality, or you can also use things like democratic principles. So you can always say that we are going to have the basic idea of like, democracy being presented, because like democracy basically means you need to take care of rights of everyone. So the moment when you make sure that education is free from everyone, that basically means that you're giving accessibility or right of education to people who don't have the ability to go ahead and probably pay fees for individuals. So that could also be one of the criteria. So so you're basically understanding how the forming of arguments actually works. So you have to have value criteria. Now tell me which speech is going to tell that this is the value criteria of our debate today. And raise your hand. Yes, Aliza and Muskan, that's correct. You can use that. So sufficient public fund, the way how you're supposed to frame it in value criteria would look like usage of limited public funds, or it could look like limited resources, or you can also say that state has the responsibility to take care of the people, or the state obligation or social contract. That's a very good way to present that. Muskan, yes, practice of right to education of law, that could also be done. Or you can say, again, link it back to what constitutionalism actually talks about. All right, tell me then.
It is the first speaker.
Yes, so it has to be the first speaker from both sides who are going to tell what is the value criteria. And at the end of the day, you're supposed to also link it back to the first speaker and then tell that why we win the debate. So in the final focus also, you have to reiterate as to why you win the debate based on the value criteria, but also you can weigh in as to like why your value criteria matters more than the other side. All right, great. Then let's understand how to frame arguments. So how you frame arguments: resolved, India should continue Make in India scheme. Can anyone tell me what is Make in India scheme? That's a very big turn off. How come you all don't know what Make in
Could you
India scheme?
repeat that? I couldn't hear you.
What is Make in India scheme? Amber, go ahead.
It was started in 2014, and it is to make India independent on itself and stronger in terms of production.
That is the aim of Make in India. And that's good. Vanshika?
It is basically strongly discouraging imported goods and products.
Yes. Sasyak?
It's basically the government giving grants to companies to manufacture within India instead of importing.
Yes. Muskan?
It encourages Indian companies to manufacture and assemble the products in India itself.
Yes. Apurva?
It is a scheme which promotes development of India's economy and to the growth of India on a global level.
Yes. And then Anushka?
Yeah, it's basically encouraging Indian companies to manufacture things in India instead of depending upon foreign goods.
Amazing. So I think by now you all know what Make in India is. Make in India literally just like translate to make in India. That means don't import, have a strong production unit within India. So I think a lot of like raw materials or production houses actually import things from outside India, specifically China, because China has a very strong production unit and manufacturing unit too. So that's basically the aim, is to try to have as strong of a manufacturing unit in India as possible, so that we have good amount of accessibility and we're not dependent on other nations. And it also kind of like helps in terms of the self-reliant policy of India. So you know what the topic is. So that's exactly, when you know the topic, you would be able to understand what you can use to support the motion and what you can use to like oppose the motion. All right. So the claims can be develop job opportunity, upgradation of technology, expand GDP, ease of business, fortify the rupee, increase in brand value, utilization of young minds, self-reliance. Let's not go into all of that. I'm not going to explain that, but it's just to give you a basic idea of the claims pro, that is the pro, how pro could actually go ahead and justify Make in India scheme. So these are the claims, and I think you understand what claims are by now. But how do you give evidence to particular claims? And that's very important. So how you actually go ahead and give evidence is basically this. So same topic, India should continue Make in India scheme. And contention one is Make in India helps in expansion of GDP. Now, how you would actually say that Make in India is going to help expand the GDP is probably you would first have a claim, and this is the claim that it helps in expansion of GDP. Now, you would give a warrant, that is reasoning as to why there is some amount of expansion. So you would say that A, there's going to be creation of jobs, there's going to be inflow of money because now people are going to be having manufacturing units. That means there's going to be creation of some demand, there's going to be supply, and therefore people are going to interact in economy more. And therefore you would have some amount of money being generated, and therefore it's going to, at the end of the day, contribute to the GDP. That's the reasoning and that's the warrant. Now, how will you prove that it's actually true? Now, you would prove by citing resources on internet. So this is the resource that I have cited. It says Shilpi 16, due to the manufacturing of products in India, economic growth is inevitable, which will not only boost the trade sector, but also with increase the GDP of economy, as with the setting up of new factories and various investments being speculated in Indian commercial sectors, that flow of income will be humongous. That says exactly the same thing which I said, all right? Which basically means it supports my claim. And what is Shilpi 16, you might ask? Can anyone take a guess what is Shilpi 16?
Is it the author and the year that was written?
Yes, exactly. It is the author and the year. So the author of the source, her name is Shilpi, and 16 basically is 2016. So this article was being made in 2016 by Shilpi, and that's where I have copy pasted this entire thing from. So this is how you quote evidences in a particular debate in public forum. You say our contention 1 is Make in India helps in expansion of GDP. Shilpi 16 states that due to manufacturing, and then you can read the entire para. Okay. Next. Forming arguments evidence card. So exactly the same thing. The format is this: full name of the primary author, comma, publication date, comma, the source, comma, title of the article, comma, date accessed for digital evidence, comma, full URL, comma, the author qualification, and the page number. So a lot of times you won't need the page numbers wala part, because a lot of people don't have page numbers in the online articles. So I've given you an example. Shilpi 16, the evidence card is Shilpi Singh, August 21, 2016. Business Alligators is the website name. Advantages and disadvantages of the Make in India is the name of the article. August 2022 was the time when I actually had last visited it. So why do you want to take a guess on why we need to know the date of when we access the article?
To find out if the article is outdated or not.
Yes, correct. So you need to know whether that article still exists or whether it has completely been demolished or something of that sort, and then just copy paste the entire article. And I would just, and comma, business expert, and this was from para 10. So business expert, who is business expert here? Who can tell me who is the business expert? Who is the business expert? It says author qualifications in the in the format.
The author?
Yes. Shilpi Singh here is business expert. All right. I'll also show you the article so that you know how that basically works. Yes. So this is advantages and disadvantages of Make in India. Shilpi Singh is here. This is when they wrote the article, and this is the para I copied. So you understand why it is so much in handy that whenever you quote these sources, it's so much easier for you to know the credibility that you're actually using a correct resource that actually exists, right? So this is how it basically works. If you guys have any questions, just let me know on this. Do you guys have any questions? No questions? Then let's have the activity time. Tell me, so you have 90 seconds, everybody. Tell me, what is the population of India? Cite the para in the chat box and also make the evidence card. Just start doing it right now. What is the population of India is the claim, and you have to find me the statistic of what is the population of India, cite the para, and then try to make the evidence card. I have also put the evidence card format so that it's handy for you all. And we will start the time right now. I hope you all are working on it. What is the population of India? I want you all to tell me the population, and then you have to tell me where did you get it from. So what is going to be the, how would you cite it in your speech? And then I want you to send me the evidence card on the chat box. So this is a activity time for you all. I would check back exactly at 7 minutes and 7 p.m. 1 minute. Sasif, do you have any question?
Yes, ma'am. My question was, when exactly will we be called upon to provide an evidence card?
During
Shouldn't
the
like, so will it be, do we have to say, cite the evidence card every time we come up with a new statement, or?
No. So yeah, every time you have a claim and you're supposed to give an evidence, as I said, the way how arguments work is claim, warrant, and evidence. So when you're making a claim, you're supposed to give the evidence to that claim. But most importantly, if you're not finding it anywhere, then just give better reasoning to that claim, right? But then how you actually question these claims and when you actually ask for evidence is basically during the crossfire. So crossfire, let's say you say that your first question can be, your contention too was about that population of India is 2000 whatever. Can you show that to me and can you send me the evidence? And that's when people are going to copy paste the evidence card in the chat box so that they can prove what they're saying is right. Do you still have the question, Sasyak?
No, I understand.
Okay. So we have some responses in the chat box. Okay, we have Sasyak is okay. And then you have 22, the current. Amazing. I'm so glad that there are responses. Okay. Apurva Jha says 138 crore source World Bank year 2020. And then Worldometer 2020. So how you would cite that is basically, and I'll tell you in the next slide. So really good, guys. I would have expected better, like more responses, but then I'm happy that people are understanding how to use it. Just see and I'm really happy that we all use the same site, because that's probably the first site that comes when you type what is the population of India. So great work, everybody. I'm happy that you all understood how that works. So this is how you're actually going to cite it. Yes, what is the population of India? Worldometer 22 states that the current population of India is this much as of Friday, August 5, 2020, based on Worldometer elaboration of the latest United Nations India. That's what you would say in your speech. But when you're asked for the evidence card, you're going to say Worldometer, August 5, 2022, Worldometer, the site name, comma, India population life, comma, August 6, 2022, because I cited it today, and then the website link, and then live statistical data website. So live statistical data website basically means that Worldometer is a statistical data website, and that's the qualification of that particular website. Yes, so try to have that basic understanding on how you're going to use particular statistical data. And then if you're asked during the crossfire, can you send me the evidence card? Worldometer till the website is going to be the evidence card. Do you guys have any questions on evidence card? If there is no name of the author given, is it necessary to give their name? No, you can use the name of the website. So Worldometer has no web author. It has the the website's name. So we have only termed Worldometer as the author by itself. A lot of times you would have to use the website's name as the author. The reason why is because like, let's say when you take like Indian government's research or statistical data from there, that's when you have to say that according to the survey of Indian government, the current population of India is XYZ. All right. Yes, everybody, you all are doing great with this research part. I'm happy that you all understand. Let's move forward, unless if there are any questions on evidence cards and how evidence work. Any questions? Samvedana, how about we use YouTube videos as evidence? That's not a good idea, because if I have to clarify or see whether that YouTube video actually said that, it's going to be very difficult for me to go through the 30 minutes of video and then come up with the conclusion that yes, whatever Samvedana has said is already there in the YouTube video. So the better way of doing it is from websites, because it's easier and more accessible. But in case if you're seeing something from a YouTube video, YouTube videos oftentimes are not in the description tab. They give you the sources that they have actually linked. So try to go through those sources and see where exactly that statement has made up by in the YouTube video. I hope that answers that question.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
then great. So forming a farm argument, warrant. I've already told you reasonings and justifications. So for a claim, Make in India would promote self-reliance in India. The reasonings could be that A, Make in India can increase investments to build infrastructure, and therefore when you have that infrastructure, you can no longer have to like rely on other nations simply because you don't have infrastructure in your nation to build up a particular thing to begin with. Okay. The second thing is this would boost local manufacturing industry, because India has so much to deal with respect to local manufacturing industry like bamboo, jute, etc. So we can do so much more in terms of innovation to boost that local manufacturing industry, and we would be able to have that promotion to these local manufacturing industry, because right now they have to compete with the other markets out of the nation, and therefore it's very difficult for them to compete there as well. So then we would have more local manufacturing agency, and therefore self-reliance is going to be there. Thirdly, would not have to rely on imports and other nations for manufacturing units. I've already told you, and that's how you can link it back to the argument and then show evidence for that. Okay, this is an example of case file. This is how you're supposed to make documents, guys. So just pay attention here. Example of the case file. The topic is United States federal government should legalize all illicit drugs. What are illicit drugs? Tell me.
Drugs that are used not for medical purposes.
Correct. So we're gonna legalize all illicit drugs. So the first contention, who would read the first contention for me? You just have to read the PPT all. What is the first contention here?
Legalization helps the world.
Yes, and the sub-contention is legalization reduces crime, discrimination, and saves the environment. So the first contention that they have used is legalization helps the world, and then tell the sub-contention to that is legalization reduces crime. And then how do you reduce crime is where they have used the evidence. So they have quoted a particular para which says that annual marijuana use has continued to increase over the past 5 years for college students, reaching the highest level in over 3.5 decades in 2020. Amongst college students, 44% reported using marijuana in the past year is in 2020 compared to 38% in 2015, representing a significant increase. And then they have quoted the exact place where they have gotten this research from. So it says NIDA, and then the article name, and then where they have gotten it from. I think they have used this particular case file has used, I guess, Blue Book citation, but just try to form the arguments on the evidence with the format that I have given, because it's much more handy. All right, the second sub-contention is number of people in prison because of illicit drug use, because so it basically is trying to say that people are into drug because people are into prisons and because of the drug use, because it's illegal to begin with. So a large number of people are now going to be out of prison because it's just a petty crime according to this particular article. This is how you're going to make your case files. Contention contention, subcontention, evidence, and then evidence cards. So this is how a case file looks like, so that you have much more clarity. Do you guys have any question with respect to this slide? I would take that as the example of the case file. This particular topic was on balance, Turkey's membership is beneficial to North Atlantic Treaty Organization. So the first contention is deterrence and war, as to like why there's going to be deterrence and war when it comes to Turkey. So why like how Turkey is strategically against Russia. So they have used a couple of researches on why that is true. So you can use like, oh, there has been escalations by Russia, and then you can use the newspaper articles to show that there has been escalations and so on and so forth. So this is how the another case file looks like. Now activity time for y'all. Okay, resolved. Death penalty should be abolished in India. Now, this is the time y'all are supposed to use your brains. What is death penalty, by the way?
The person is killed because of for doing crimes.
Punishment to any sort of crime that's committed.
Okay. What are the major crimes in India where you get death penalty? Can anyone tell me that?
Murder.
Homicide or genocide.
Okay. Okay, so you understand there are extreme and the rarest of the rare cases where India allows death penalty. Now you're supposed to tell me arguments for pro in this particular resolution, and I think we can start with whoever wants to go first, and then we can start with how you can prove that argument. Okay, Antara, go ahead.
Death penalty is used in extreme cases. That person is about to be executed only after doing one of the most horrendous crimes written in the Constitution. When you don't want them to die, when you want to live, you're just using the taxpayers' money to waste resources on someone who's probably never going to change. We can prove that by showing how much money is spent in jails or in general for the rehabilitation of these people, and prove how this money could be used in several other ways instead of wasting them on people who are most likely not to improve.
Okay, so your claim is that we have limited resources and therefore we need to prioritize the state spending on things which are extremely necessary. I think this is the argument for con, right? Because it says that penalty should be abolished.
Yes.
Okay, so the claim is we need to use limited resources. Now, how would you prove that, and what could be the evidence for it? Antara? If anyone else,
that can be proved by the amount of money that's spent on one person, right?
Exactly. So you can use this statistics online that this much amount of money is being used every year on a particular person because they are staying in jail, and therefore to cut down that that amount of money that has been spent, just go ahead and execute them. That's better option. Very good. Next, Apurva.
I will be speaking with the topic. So death penalty does not resolve the problem. It just ends the life of the person, and the problem is not resolved at a huge level. So it does not has a positive impact on the Indian population, because things should be done in such a way that the crime is being stopped, and by giving death penalties, we are just ending their lives and not resolving the problem.
Okay, so your claim is that death penalty does not assure rehabilitation or does not assure that crimes are going to be stopped in a nation, all right? So yes. How would you prove that with evidence? What could be the necessary evidence?
Ma'am, it can be seen that various death penalties are given to the people who do crimes like murders and other of these kind of activities, but still there are a huge number of cases in India of such situations. So ma'am, can this be the evidence?
No, in India you don't give death penalty very easily. I think the last death penalty was given in Nirbhaya's case, and before that there was Kasab's case. So very rarely. Death penalty is given very rarely.
Ma'am, can you please help me with the evidence? I'm getting confused actually.
Yes. So you can't use India's example because India gives death penalty in the rarest of the rare case. So that probably would not give you a better explanation. How you can do it is use the example of nations which who inherently give death penalty very quickly, and then use the crime rate of their particular nation. So if you find a nation which has quicker number of death penalties, and as opposed to that, the amount of crime rate that happens. And if the crime rate is high, just use that example and show that death penalties do not assure that people are going to stop committing crimes.
Okay, ma'am, got it. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, next up, Muskan, go ahead.
Ma'am, one of the constitutional rights given to the people of the country is right to life, and that right is being violated while performing the death penalty. So it should be abolished.
Okay, that's a very good claim, and that's a very good claim because that's also one of the claims that human rights activists actually use to tell why death penalty is bad, and that's one of the rights that are also recognized by Human Rights Commission, and that's also one of the rights that UN is trying to push forward to many nations to begin with. Okay,
I have a
so
question.
yes, Andhra.
Okay, so we heard like the claim was that it's the right to life, but we can in the crossfire can be questioned, right? Why are you protecting the right to life of someone who has committed a crime, who has committed one of the most horrendous crimes? Like, why are you protecting someone using the constitution who broke the constitution?
Yes, that's the response to that argument. So how you can say is that we can have that as exception, because I don't know how many all have constitution as a subject, but the article 21 right to life states that that the life of an individual is important, and like you can take the life of an individual based on the established law, like the procedure established by law. That basically means that things like execution can be permitted because it's an example of way or established procedure of law. So it actually does not go against right to life according to Indian constitution, but it goes against the right to life according to like the UN conventions and all of that. But then that's a very good response to that argument, because that's how you can tackle that, right to life, sure that it exists, but then why right to life exists, you have to warrant it, because just proving that it's a law is not enough. Okay.
Ma'am, may I present an argument against this?
Yes, go ahead, Gurveer.
Yeah, so in the Jan Kaur case in Supreme Court in 1996, it had held that Article 21 does not include the right to die. It includes the right to life. And right to life is the belief that a being has a right to live, and in particular, should not be killed by any other entity. So even if the person who has broken such law, or who has gone against the constitution in a sense, they also deserve a right to life. And as stated by the esteemed Supreme Court, it does not include the right to die.
Gurveen, do you have law as a subject in your academics?
Yeah.
You do? So can you tell me the facts of the case? Because the facts of the case are actually about suicide, if I'm not wrong.
I haven't really gone into the research, but that was the precedent. Supreme Court basically forms the precedent, right? So this is the precedent which goes for all cases and is not just relevant to this particular case.
Hi everyone. I think Afreen ma'am is having a little network glitches, so we'll just allow her a couple of minutes to join back in. All right.
Okay, I'm here. Am I audible and visible?
Oh, wonderful. We were just waiting for you.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Yes, so I was telling Gurveen that so that particular case, if I'm not wrong, and correct me if I am. So I think that case actually talks about suicide and not necessarily about this right to life and like right to life as in execution. Is it the case, Gurveen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so it's about suicide. So it basically says that a person should not have the right to kill themselves, and that's the essence of that case. So you can't use that case here.
Ma'am, but it's the precedent given by the Supreme Court, so can't it be used in like all the cases?
Yes, but then the explanation, yes. So look at the explanation that you're giving. You're saying that, so we were standing for the motion or against the motion?
For.
Okay, so you're saying that because Supreme Court says that right to kill is not a right. Okay, so do you know rights are against who?
Sorry, right.
Yeah, the rights that are given to you, they're against who?
They are for the citizens, no?
Yes, and rights can be availed against who? Against the state?
Yeah.
Yes. So can you say that state does not have a right to kill people?
I mean, that is what the article says.
Correct. Yes. So you can use that case to tell that, listen, right to kill is, again, right to kill is not a right. So you can't say that state does not have the ability to kill people, because that's not what the case says. Case says that right to kill is not an inherent part of right to life. Correct? So there is no right called as you can't kill, or like, okay, so that's what you meant. I understood. Yes, I think you can use it then. But then don't like use the idea of like suicide and all of that, because it won't make sense then. Yeah, that's a very good claim. Yes. Atreya, go ahead.
So, like someone else said, I believe that the Indian government is already facing budget losses because for a long time their revenue has been lower than their costs. So spending money on individuals who break the constitution when they're not supposed to is not really ideal, because there are people who are on the streets, and this revenue can be used for better wealth distribution throughout the country. So yeah.
I also want you all to like understand that it's not against constitution. Crimes are not against constitution. They're against IPC, Indian Penal Code, and you'll learn it afterwards. I'm a law student, so I know that.
Okay.
So crimes are not against constitution. Constitution just gives you rights.
Yeah.
So yes, crimes are against constitution when a person is like, so let's say when a person is being killed, basically the right to life of their person is being challenged, but you never get death penalty through constitution. You get death penalty through, let's say, 302. Yes. Okay. So Pranay, go ahead.
Yeah. Can I say like I'm supporting the motion? Okay. Death penalty is absolutely correct, as death penalty is a statement that is only given when a grave crime is committed, such as murder. Such crimes are a result of the person's insanity, and the crime doer's mentality cannot be changed. If the person is relieved from his punishment, he does not change. Instead, he commits more crimes. I have evidence. Albert Flick, a 77-year-old murderer, released after a murder, was released again as he was deemed as Albert Flick, a 77-year-old murderer, was released again as he was deemed to be too old for murder. He was later arrested again for killing a mother of two twins.
So you're basically saying that, you know, things like serial killers and all of that exist, and when you give them the ability to not be killed, and they're given, let's say, life imprisonment. Life imprisonment is what, 14 years? That's not a good enough amount of deterrence that is there, and I think that's a very good claim. Yes, you can use that. And I think you used evidence also. You just have to state where you got it from. All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Great. Prabhash, go ahead. I cannot hear you. Is it just me? Prabhash, you're unmuted, but I can't hear you. Okay, we'll move to Atreya. Atreya, do you still have
No, sorry.
Okay, so we have a couple of things in the chat as well. I think Angad says no, Angad says something else. Yes, I think Gurveen had one, and then yeah, Anvita says death penalty should not be abolished as the death may fuel fear in the population, therefore may decrease crime rate. The evidence could be to record the decrease in crime rates after death penalty is presented. That's correct. Anything else? Pro, con, anything? Any more evidences or any more arguments? Anjali, ma'am, yes, ma'am. So are there any other, okay, Angad, go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, I think personally that death penalty should be abolished because it will instead of making the country unsafer, it will make it safe. Now, the whole of European Union, they have abolished death penalty, and they are relatively safer than countries like USA, India, Saudi Arabia, Iran, which still have death penalty. And if we look at the psychology of the criminal, he will actually he will not be scared of death, because after he has committed such a heinous crime, he will of course welcome death with open arms, like please take me, because I don't want to be here. So that is my whole point.
Yes, that's a very good argument, because you used the claim. You also told me how you would give the evidence and then the response. Okay, Vanshika. Okay, tell me. I think you all have heard Angad. Now tell me how you would rebut that claim, because it seems to be too good to be true, and I don't think there can be a. So I know the response to that, but I want you all to take a moment and tell how you would respond. So the claim is that EU has done it and it has worked well there. So in India also you can have the same thing. So they have given a comparative of countries who have death penalty as opposed to countries who don't have death penalty, and therefore what is the crime rate? Can anyone give me the rebuttal to that? Thank you all. Yes, Anvita says different mindsets. So the way how EU and European countries work is different, and India is fairly a very different nation. So you can use that, and you can also use the example or demography of different nations and the way how they work, but also like how the way, like in terms of progression, in terms of the mindset, or like the how people actually perceive crimes is also very different. Vanshika says what works for one country doesn't necessarily mean would work for another. That's also the way how you can take it. And then Vihan says population distribution also plays a very important role. Yes, that's how you can rebut that argument. Antara, you wanted to rebut that too?
I have the same argument, population.
Yes. So that's how you can rebut that. I'm happy. Every country has different system of working. Yes, that's how you can do that as well. But yes, Vanshika, go ahead with your claim now.
Yes, ma'am. What I wanted to say was, some people actually experience a change of heart after living some years in prison, and experience great remorse. So even we can present statistics that so and so amount of people completely changed. So death penalty would have been sort of unfair to them regardless of their crimes committed. So yeah.
So your argument is based on rehabilitation, okay?
Yeah.
Yes, great. That's a good argument. How would you rebut that? How can you tell that? Because I think that's a fair claim that, listen, when you kill people, you're inherently telling that they can't change. So how would you actually change mentalities? Because at the end of the day, the root cause of the problem is people have some amount of problem in the way how their psychology works. So you would never be able to change the root problem or change the reason why crimes actually happen. Yes, Pranay? I would take that as a mistake. Ria, do you have the response to that?
In fact, I want to add to Vanshika's point.
Okay.
So, like she said, that there's also many people who not only go to prison, but there's also therapy for them. and this therapy can prove to be really helpful and can produce a change of mind and change of heart. Once these people completely change and transform into a better human being, they can be used as human resource for the country, and it like as every single life in the country is human resource and can provide development to the country. These people also would have a chance to prove themselves that they have changed for the better and kind of work as a advantage for the country.
Yes, correct. So the response to the arguments that were being given by both of you is being given by Anvita. They say that amnesty programs may not work as the person may not be willing to change. So rehabilitation is basically a probability work, and therefore you don't necessarily know whether you would, when you would give them the chance, they would probably rehabilitate, or they would be actually there would be no change. So yes, that's a very good response to that. Antara?
I want to revert as well. So these people, they had their whole lives to prove that they were mentally okay. They had their whole lives to prove that there was nothing wrong with them. But they did still commit a murder. They still did commit a horrendous crime. And even if therapy works, in the best case scenario, therapy works, the government is going to spend a lot more resources on that person than that person can ever give back. So
yes, that's a very good response. So I think that basically means that when I think rehabilitation, the essence of the rehabilitation is that, when people, you consider that these people are probably coming in from a background or a family background which probably was into criminal background to begin with, but also be like things like poverty and things like extreme like harshness in terms of economy also put in a lot of people into crime. So that is the argument that rehabilitate, like the activists who want rehabilitation to work actually use. And that's exactly why Antara's argument can be a good response to that, because a large chunk of time people say that the way how you deal with poverty, or the way how people deal with different situations in life, actually makes or breaks a man. So you being in poverty cannot justify that you have committed a particular crime. That was a choice that you made. Sure, the poverty was not a choice that you made, but the choice of committing crime was probably the choice that you made, because a lot of people who are into poverty are probably into like labor system or something of that sort. That's just choice that they made. That doesn't mean every poor person is going to end up in, let's say, like criminal activity. So Antara says that they made a choice, and throughout the time they had the time to prove that they are good, better people and not antisocial elements, but they did not, and therefore you cannot say that rehabilitation is probably going to work for them. And then also like time and resources is a very good argument, and I think Anvita also says the same thing. So yes, that's a good response. Sasyak, yes, go ahead.
I think it has more to do with the mindset of the public after they hear that somebody's been sentenced to death. Because people who had the mindset to commit such a crime in the first place, on hearing that it receives such a penalty, might become more aggressive. They might become aggressive. And the number of times that a similar crime is committed might increase. So it might be defeating the purpose.
That's also a good argument. So I think we're exceeding time now, but I'm happy that you all had good arguments, you had responses. Muskan says death penalty for the crimes can also lead to other small crimes like bribery, tampering with evidence. Yes, that's a very, very good argument. The reason being is that I think I'm not sure how many of you all have read the Nirbhaya guidelines, but I think one of the suggestions was that whether we should have death penalty for rape cases in India. And the conclusion was no, we shouldn't, because it basically increases the ability of the criminals to go ahead and, like, to an extent that, because now rape would be equal to, let's say, things like murder. So people would never leave like victims alone, and they would probably, and they're much more likely to kill the people, because that's equal to murder. So it's might as well kill the individual and leave or try to temper all the evidence, as opposed to like them having like a live rape victims to begin with. So yes, that's a very good response too. And then somebody says death penalty is not only to set an example for people living in the society, but also for those who are yet to come. Yes, so it creates a deterrence. It creates this bars for individuals, so whether they should actually go ahead and commit crimes or not, right? So I'm just going to be like showing you the slide as to what I had in mind when I made it, and what could be the the responses to end the entire thing, because we should end it in some note. Pros can say that, listen, death penalty is inhumane. You can say that eye for an eye would make the whole world blind, because just because a person has killed somebody, that does not mean you would kill them back, because that does not like assure you change to begin with. Second, you're not giving chance for people to rehabilitate. I think a lot of you actually said that. Fourth, there is arbitrary and disproportionate. So what as actually that argument is that a lot of times, as I said, India, they impose it on rarest of the rarest crimes. As I said, last it was Kasab's case and all of that. So, like it's disproportionately applicable in different cases, and you don't necessarily know when the judge would have the discretion to give death penalty or not give this death penalty, and that's where it's problematic. So, in couple of cases where the apartheid situation or like the laws are very discriminatory, people actually give death penalty more to the people who are coming out from probably minorities and all of that. That's very wrong. Next is no proof of deterrence. Don't necessarily have, you cannot assure that it's going to create a deterrence for people who are not committing any crime. Next is no solution to the root cause of the problem. So the root cause of the problem is probably, let's say, like they're in poverty, they're in a place of like oppression, and therefore they're coming out, their aggression is coming out in a way which shouldn't necessarily happen. Next is denies right to life, as you all have said, and delays and exhaustion of state resources. So whenever there is a death penalty in question, the court takes more number of more years to decide whether we should give them death penalty or not, as opposed to like when it does not actually have things like death penalty in question, because death penalty is a huge thing. And therefore, when these things happen and the cases delay, the state resources actually get exhausted. Con can talk about retribution, that we need to create that amount of deterrence. We need to tell that, listen, if you have killed somebody, you need to die as well. Secondly, deterrence, that it creates an image in society that, listen, this person is committing a crime, they are going to die now. That basically means that if you're going to do the crime too, you're going to die as well. Third is rarest of the rarest crime. So we need to take care of like such kind of situations, and therefore when you abolish it, the rarest of the rarest atrocities that has been done to a victim is extremely going to be ignored. Next is state's responsibility to keep society safe. So you're supposed to keep those bad elements, you're supposed to keep the society away from the bad elements or the social antisocial elements that are present in the society. You can get them out of the society so that the society is safe. Next is justice to the victim. So when the victim or the victim's family is like present and they see the culprit literally like moving around and like is in a prison and they're still alive, it just basically breaks the purpose of justice that has been served. Next is no proof of rehabilitation. So you don't actually know whether rehabilitation is going to work or not. Secondly, rehabilitation as a system takes so much resources. So you need to take care and monitor each individual. And oftentimes and not, these criminals are very intelligent. They would like show in front of you that, yes, I have rehabilitated. And then outside they would go back and commit crimes. So you don't necessarily know whether rehabilitation programs actually work. Last is protection of the moral order of the society. You need to protect the moral order. So when these culprits are actually in the jail, or even regardless, they still have some influence in the society, and therefore it's bad. So these are the things that we could actually talk about. Ria says time wasted upon deciding whether a death penalty is required can lead to delayed justice, and justice delays and justice denied. Exactly. Gurveen actually has latest prison statistics, and which shows that how many people actually suffer from mental illness. That's a very good evidence that you can actually use. Yes, I think you all are understanding how case files actually work. So I think you would be able to make a good case file now. Tomorrow we are probably going to have a mock session. You would be able to see how speeches actually work, because now you know how debates work, you know how case file are supposed to be made. So if you debaters have any question, you can ask. Otherwise, we are going to conclude the session. And all the best for making the case file now.
I just wanted to ask if you're going to share the PPTs on the group so that we can refer to them while making our case files.
Yes, it's going to be shared in the group.
All right.
Okay, then any other questions? I would take that as no. Anjali ma'am, are you there? I think they're not, but then thank you so much for joining, and good luck for making case prep or case files. And yes, have a good time researching, try to gain more knowledge. Yes, Anoushka?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, like, it's not related to this, but like while speaking, like in the debate, how much time would we have to present our points and arguments?
So you have to refer back to the format. So I think for you all, the constructive speech. If you're giving the constructive speech, it's going to be for 4 minutes. If you're going to rebuttal speech, it's going to be for 4 minutes. And then again, the final focus is for 2 minutes. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Yes, Pranay.
Yes, so the case files, on what topic should we prepare the case files on? I joined a little late. I joined at 4:40.
Do you know the motion that is there?
Should
The
I,
motion of the,
yeah, the vermin, the topic, right?
that's the topic you're supposed to make
Yeah,
case files
so
on.
what if we already made another case file, like before?
Yeah. Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's how it's supposed to be done. Like, you're supposed to research. The nutshell is that how you're supposed to like start preparing for the tournament. So the tournament's topic, you're supposed to make case files on that for your own benefit. You're not supposed to show it to me. You're not supposed to submit it to anyone, but it's for your own benefit.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? I would then take it as no. So goodbye. Have a great night.
Thank you.